So, me and Joe, on separate occasions, but we both did this
With different people.
with different people. I mean, separate occasions.
Mhm.
But we watched a movie called Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, Quentin Tarantino's ninth movie. As you guys know, I've been kind of going back and watching some of them without the time to watch all of them. I'll have to do that after this, but I'm a fan.
Well, they're a big cutie boy.
Yeah, I like Cutie. Um, and Joe is kind of
I like movies. I told you this before. I like Quentin Tarantino movies. I just there are moments where I just kind of I get into I keep watching them and then I just kind of pass out because
they're
they're just
long, they're
they're long.
long and talkative.
Yeah,
And
and
Joe's a pacing boy, like you said earlier in the
yeah.
podcast.
That being said, I didn't feel drowsy during this entire movie. I don't know why.
That's a new fucking record, guys. We did it.
Yeah, which is crazy because this movie is long as fuck.
Oh,
And
it is like 2 hours 40, almost three,
yeah,
and it moves at a pretty slow pace, but
yeah,
also like at a good pace where each individual scene, none of the conversations are that long. Like
yeah.
nothing is like drawn out in particular long in each scene. There's just a lot going on in each scene.
Mhm.
Um,
Each scene itself feels like its own miniature movie or scene, or
well,
it feels like each scene has its own beginning, middle, and end, or point of the story, if that makes sense. Like the part with Cliff and what he's doing,
mhm.
and Rick and what he's doing on set of the new Western show that's being made, and then Sharon Tate and what she's doing. They feel like separate movies going on at the same time.
Yeah.
But
With,
but
with with Cliff and Rick, I feel like they're more
Mhm.
the same movie. Like that could be a movie of its own, and then you
Yeah,
have the Sharon Tate stuff added.
which
But
is yeah,
I've seen the criticism that people are like, oh, you could remove all of that Sharon Tate stuff, and I'm gonna get to it with very detailed spoilers later. But you really can't. I feel like it was really important to have the Sharon Tate stuff,
yeah,
especially considering what kind of story Quentin Tarantino wanted to tell here and what
yeah.
his goal was.
I agree, but I also think that it could have been done a little bit more involved with everything else. But I agree
Mm,
that needs to be in there. But
I'll tell
I
you why it worked.
no, I also understand why it works, and I agree. As okay, I get where he was going with that, but I can understand from walking in from a a generic movie perspective, thinking why are we just following this? Why are we finding Margot Robbie around just everywhere for no reason? It seems. But yeah,
Well,
no,
I can
no reason
tell
to
there's
everyone.
good reasons why it's isolated,
Yeah,
and it really only all comes together at the very end of this movie. This is a very end focused movie.
yeah, it's a
Um,
western. That's what it is. That's what all westerns are basically. They're movies that are building up to a certain point.
I
Uh,
mean, that's kind of generic. Like,
yeah,
That was the biggest statement I've ever heard.
I know. It is, but the big payoff in this is the big showdown.
I just want to say that like Bradley's head is like dying, so he's like, we're like, yo, you can sit out, but he just had to jump in to say that
I
one.
had I had to get in there.
So like I said, this movie really benefits like it. The very last frame of this movie recontextualizes the whole movie for me, but
Mhm.
and it elevated it. But going through it, I was already having fun because what the movie does really well, it's two core characters, which I would say are Cliff and Rick. Um, what they go through and their dialogue and all the filming that goes around them. I mean, like the way that the story is told around them with Quentin Tarantino's direction and dialogue. It's all just really entertaining, fun, and thought provoking.
Yeah, I feel like a big portion of this is the a kind of a big like theme of these characters and purpose of these characters is to show it is the perception of success in real life,
Yeah,
and that means to one person and what it means to another person, because Cliff and Rick have very two different perspectives of that.
but also that's another place where Sharon comes in as well. But
Yeah,
onto the Rick and Cliff, right?
yeah,
So let's talk about our characters a little bit, like the base knowledge that you'd have to know coming in there. Rick is played by Leonardo DiCaprio, the God,
hmm,
especially like goddamn some of his scenes in this movie. But
yeah,
Cliff is a aging Western star who is fading out of existence. And the movie opens up with a scene of a director telling him, "Oh, you know what? I really liked your work on this TV show where you were like a really important part of it. You acted your ass off. You were the classical movie star for this kind of show. But I've been noticing lately, you just go on TV shows or small movies, and you just get your ass beat as the villain, and you're just there to make the new younger buck look better.
Yeah.
Why don't you come work with me in Italy, where we can revitalize your career?" Which is apparently something that also happened to Clint Eastwood, where in like the fading years of his career, he went to Europe and then he came back and he got bigger roles after. So like what this movie director is saying has some precedence. He knows what he's talking about. He's actually like, that's a helpful dude. Like, he's just telling you the truth.
Yeah, and he a big theme in this movie is self-esteem and your perspective on your worth. And I think this character is the person that comes to right at the very beginning. He's like, you're worth something, and there's something in you that's really special, but you're not bringing that out in what you're taking.
Something I really love directly after that scene goes with the self-esteem thing, where he's just immediately crying to his friend Cliff. He's like, he's right, I'm nothing, like I'm fading away, I'm just gonna fucking do nothing. And Cliff is all like, don't cry in front of the Mexicans now. It's just like,
and that's like almost the opposite of what that guy was trying to do. He was trying to say like, you're really good. It's just you're just choosing not to capitalize on it, or you're not realizing another avenue to accelerate that.
And and the big part of Cliff is like, he's at a stage in life where he just has no self-esteem, where he has no confidence.
Yeah, and Cliff is a big character flaw for him. Is he only sees one avenue of success and one way to be, and one way of like what success is, and that's kind of what Sharon Tate and her family and her relationship is, and how that is to him.
So talking about where Cliff starts at the beginning of the movie, Cliff is played by Brad Pitt, who give him a fucking Oscar for this one because he killed it.
Did I say Cliff? I have to say Rick, but Cliff is great.
You said Rick. But talking about Cliff now. So he has always worked closely with Rick, which is Leo's character. They're very close friends, and he was his body double in a lot of shows. So they've kept a good relationship of getting where Rick gets the role, and then he gets Cliff to be his body double.
And then like Cliff also does all the side stuff that he's basically like Rick's chauffeur and kind of like best man in terms of everything else. Like he's like, hey, can you help me around the house? Can you fix my antenna? Can you drive me to this place? And I'll pay you for it. Like Rick is very much just like, I know you're my friend, but I'm not gonna just like not pay you for these things.
Yeah, like Rick is also his boss. It's his boss friend, and the reason why is because just like Rick is a fading movie star, Cliff is an even harder fading stunt double because of things he's done in the past and relationships that he's broken. It's really hard for him to get a job in the industry, even with Rick's sway, which isn't that much these days.
Yeah, and the biggest foil for them is that Rick is preoccupied with the idea of like, I'm fading away from Hollywood, I'm losing my time, my life. Whereas Cliff is kind of almost accepted that and really doesn't care. Like he's very humble about his surroundings.
He's super humble. I think there's another argument made against this movie where it's like, oh man, there's a lot of driving scenes with Cliff, right?
Right.
That first one in particular, I feel like was so important for me to understand the character.
Yeah, because especially because you immediately compare the two driving sequences between Leonardo DiCaprio's car and his car, because when he's driving Leo's car or Rick's car, he's very steady, he's very easygoing, he's very careful in what he does. He's like, this is your car, I'm driving you to the place, and this is where you go. As soon as he gets into his car, which is a beat up
piece of shit,
piece of shit, he fucking blazes out of there like a bat out of hell.
And then you get these shots of the Hollywood like skyline and the streets to really build the aesthetic, because Hollywood as a character is really important to this movie. It's important that we set the snap frame of what Hollywood was like in 1969, right? But on top of that, the scene is dragged out to a point where it's like, he's blazing home, and it still takes him a while to get home. And when he gets home to a shitty trailer where all he has is like his cute dog, who's a huge hero. Very good boy. I mean, girl.
Yeah.
And it just goes to show you the distance he's willing to go every single day to pick up Rick at 7:30 a.m. in the morning, do his chores for him while he's at the studio, try to get stunt job work, which he can't these days,
Yeah.
and just do all sorts of things. And
it's a long distance too, because he starts off and the sun is like not setting, but it's getting close to that setting point.
yeah,
And by the time he gets home, it's dark.
yeah, it was a really smart way, which a lot of people won't appreciate, but it was a really smart way to just show you his dedication to Rick.
Yeah.
And the movie is just full of that. There's so many little details. Like, you look around Rick's apartment, it feels so lived in. You have so much memorabilia about his movies that shows the narcissistic side of Rick, where he's
But
so
also,
proud of
his
his
own-
accomplishments.
Yeah, but also his like own pride that he felt proud as an actor or
Yeah.
doing this job and doing these things. It's just like he doesn't want to give that up because that's what makes him feel like a person. Like that's his whole existence.
Even
is
his
being-
parking spot has one of his posters. I was like,
Yeah.
he looks at it every day in the morning as they're driving out, and the camera is positioned behind the car, so as they're pulling in and out, you see that poster as well as like a reminder of his past success.
Yeah, to Rick, like his whole identity is his ability and his career as an actor, and he's trying to hold on to that as much as he can, and he doesn't want to devalue that at all. That's his whole big conflict at the beginning with the going to do the Italian movies. Is like it's not real Hollywood, but he just kind of has to come to the grip of like what he actually is.
Yeah. And on Cliff's side, once you get to his house, it is also so lived in, where it's just very functional, very messy. You can tell just looking at his pantry, he cares more about his dog than he cares about himself. It just very good, just filmmaking that tells you a lot about the characters just from the way stuff is shot, the way from the environment. For an example, with the way stuff is shot, there's a scene at a ranch midway through the movie where as he's talking to a certain character, the camera's getting at more crazy Dutch angles and really close up to everyone's face to show you like this very close face-to-face confrontation. Just on a technical level, there is no doubt that this is an S-tier movie for me.
Yeah, it's everything is framed purposely and perfectly. It's amazing.
What other spoiler-free things could I say here?
I think so. Talking about the Sharon Tate thing, it becomes more in the. There's a lot of tension in this movie.
Yes, this is a really big tension-building movie.
And you really only get that if you know a little bit about the
history.
So
Which,
like this.
I told everyone here to research a little bit about the Manson murders, which is something that is going on in the background of this era in this movie.
And you get these really creepy and like horror paranoia shots. Like there's the scene of like the hippie girls and they're singing and they're coming over you can't like this hill or something there, and there's the light that's behind them and you can't really tell who they are. And
that scene is so good.
Yeah.
To introduce the hippies, because it's also the song that they're singing is a Charles Manson song.
Yeah, there's the scene where they're digging around in the trash and they're just finding bread or whatever, and they're just like they're almost like rats.
And they're all over town because they're always in those shots where Cliff is driving. They're in the background showing their presence there, and Sharon Tate even randomly just picks one of them up as just like a little character building moment for her.
And like, I think the best way to describe them is like they're like the rats of Hollywood. They're just kind of like feeding off the scraps of like the starlight and everything, but also resenting them at the same time.
A big part of this movie is also the hippie movement kind of starting to ruin Hollywood, Hollywood's identity. That's really, really internalized in the midway point where Rick is doing his big new movie. And he has to dress like a freaking crazy hippie cowboy kind of thing. There, he's like, how do they even recognize that this is me? And they're like, oh no, we don't want you to recognize this as you. We want them to see your character. And Rick just looks at that as a defeat. It's like, oh, am I really not going to be able to be the star?
But that also leads to a really good moment later in the.
Oh boy, it does. I just want to say, I guess as the last thoughts, this movie, it has probably my favorite movie ending period. The way that this wrapped up was so impactful for me.
Very beautiful. And
it was really. I don't want to say too much about it, but it was fantastic.
yeah,
If the movie like seems like it's not going anywhere or you're not sure about it, make sure to keep an open mind and get to the end because it will make you see things differently and it will make you every time you think about the movie, it honestly gets better. At least
yeah.
for me.
I think it's definitely one that you want to watch again because I feel
Boy,
like
do I.
it's shorter once you know like where it's going to kind of deal, and you're not just like where are we heading to?
And there was a scene in this movie that had me with my eyes watering, almost crying, which I've never cried in the theater. It was just the state at which I am in life in comparison to what the characters were going through in that scene. That fucking broke me, man. And I don't want to. I'll go into it in the spoiler section, but just to get that out there.
Yeah. Anyways, I'm giving it a 5 out of 5. I don't think I'll put in like my top 5 movies. It probably is like top 15 if anything for my personal reasons. But it's a fantastically shot movie, fantastically written, fantastically acted, like S tier.
Holy crap. Really well acted. I'm gonna give it a 5 out of 5, and I think it does break my top 5. I think it beats out Kill Bill as my third favorite Tarantino movie.
Wow, that's some big shit.
Right now it goes 2 movies we haven't talked about on this podcast, and then this movie, and then Kill Bill. And then like Hateful Eight and Jackie Brown. Well, I haven't talked about Hateful Eight yet, but okay. That's where we're standing. That's a big deal for me because all of those movies are like in my top 5 to 10. Like I really like Tarantino's work.
Yeah.
Yeah, Bradley, if any of this sounded cool, I will fucking go. I'll pay for you to go watch it just so I can watch it again.
One thing I like about Tarantino movies is that they always just have good colors.
Oh, this movie's super colorful.
I feel like this movie is more light orientated than color orientated. Do you know what I'm saying? There's a lot of like use of rays and sun rays and the way light refracts in this movie.
Yeah,
right?
I could see that. Am I right, ladies? All right. I think we can kick Bradley out now. Brad, you got a hypothetical for us so you can go get some rest.
Okay, so you go to the doctor, right?
Yeah.
And he's like, "Okay, look,
Uh-huh.
I know I was supposed to be giving you a prostate exam. Long story short, your nose is gone."
What?
So your nose is gone. Let's not get into it. So
What?
he's like, "Here's the thing. We weren't able to get your nose on ice, even though there's ice everywhere. But I have my leftover lunch from the hospital cafeteria. So yeah, let's pick you a new nose. I have an apple. That could be a good nose. I have a like one of those little pint-sized milk cartons.
Ooh.
I have a banana
Okay, banana nose.
and a chocolate chip cookie. What's your new nose? Pick one.
I think I have to go with the carton because most of those will degrade.
Well, here's the thing.
Pretend it doesn't degrade.
Chocolate chip cookie, because the chocolate chip cookie will be pretty fine for a long time. The milk is going to spoil in the carton.
Oh,
He,
well, you're gonna remove the carton from the milk, dummy.
He grafts and splices it into your body so that the living cells merge with yours, so the food won't go bad.
Okay, so hold on. That because like if I'm gonna have a weird nose, maybe I should go with banana nose and be like a One Piece character.
I think I might go.
But
Nose.
I hate bananas.
Bananas
Ooh.
smell nice too. Like
I like the smell of bananas.
they smell so sweet and good. I don't know, man. I'm gonna go with banana nose if I'm guaranteed that it doesn't rot. How easy is it to like destroy this new nose?
It becomes as durable as normal human flesh, but it
Okay.
looks exactly like a banana.
Okay, yeah, banana.
Whenever I hadn't thought of a hypothetical before time, so I was kind of freestyling now.
That was good considering your last 2 freestyles. That was very good.
Right. I need to go because my head explodey.
Bye, Bradley.
I don't know anyone. Bye, Brad. Well, are you still there?
I'm still here, and you know what else is here? Chekhov's fucking flamethrower.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the podcast title, by the
Welcome
way.
to the freaking Utah cast.
Freaking UCast, baby. Okay. All right, let's get into spoilers. We're gonna rewind. We were talking about Sharon Tate, right?
Yes.
Um, I feel like this movie has two stories. One is the story of Rick and Cliff and their friendship, which is exemplified by the line, "More than a brother, but a little less than a wife," which
Yeah.
I thought was a really sweet line. I really appreciate that Tarantino was able to show like this healthy male bond relationship without like having to make it too macho, with making it very organic.
There's a great scene that's like I think right before the time skip that I think really exemplifies that, and that's when they drive up, and Rick is like, "Hey man, my FBI special's about to come on. You want to watch it with me?" He's like, "Hey man," and Cliff's like, "Yeah, dude, I didn't expect anything less. I brought some beer. Let's order some pizza. And let's sit down and watch this thing."
That's one of the best scenes in the movie.
Yeah,
The camera
and
just focuses on the screen as they just riff to the movie. It just felt so good.
yeah, and you're like you get this idea like, oh, they are actually like best buds.
Yeah.
Um,
And their relationship is weird because there's a lot of give and take where and it's not quite balanced, but they understand each other. They understand what
they
they
understand where
need.
the person's coming from. Like
Yeah.
they get that like, oh hey, I understand Rick. His whole important thing is, you know, uh, Rick's thing is that he wants to be this movie star, and that's a big important thing to him. So I'm gonna respect him for that. And Rick kind of also understands that Cliff just needs work to do work because
Yeah.
that's what Cliff does. Like,
So we're gonna touch this back in a second, right? So that's
Yeah.
one half of the story, and it's a wonderful story. There's the actual story points are spread out enough to where audiences might think it's slow, but I think it goes. If you map out like every single scene is important to build that climax with them, right?
yeah,
So the Sharon Tate stuff, which is disconnected from that story pretty much completely.
hmm
She serves a couple of purposes. So the second story Tarantino is trying to tell here is the story of saving Sharon Tate's life. What will the world be like if this tragedy didn't happen to someone that I look up to? He clearly respects and appreciates her very much, to where all of her scenes are there to build her personality without getting too deep with it. I felt like it was really really tasteful, where all the real characters were there. They had some quirks about them, but they weren't ever super portrayed to where Quentin Tarantino could fit that much personality into them, aside from like small things, small ways to encapsulate those characters, basically. Where Sharon Tate, he sees her as this like really nice, friendly lady.
yeah. Like
Um,
she's portrayed in this movie as like a goddess of Hollywood or like a saint or someone like an idol. Like that's how.
there's reverence to her.
Yes,
But it's not like she's like plot armory famous, because
she's not.
she's a up and coming star. First of all, um, she is someone who has a certain lack of also in unconfidence. She wants to go into this movie and see people react to her.
Yeah, she's very innocent. She's very naive. Like
Yeah.
she's new to this whole thing, and she's just like she's kind of like the successful hippie, like the one that was able to make it. Like she's very free loving and free going, and
Yeah.
like wants to be friends with everyone. Like she has her ex fiance come over to her house all the time because she just wants to keep him
Best
in his
friends.
life.
I feel
yeah.
like she's a huge foil to Rick, where Rick's stardom is fading, and you get the snapshot of a rising star and how much more in her zone she is than Rick is, and how nice she is. She picks up the hippie for nothing. She's buying a present for her husband for nothing. You know?
And like you get the idea of like what you understand now, like what Rick is missing, like why he
Yeah.
wants to go back to that evergreen, and like it's like I miss the time where I could go into my theater and like listen to everyone laugh or like yell and be excited for what's happening, and kind of be in that limelight and know what it was like to like go back there and be innocent and be part of that whole experience again. And he's like chasing after it because once you get older, it's hard to like one up yourself over and over again.
Yeah, and it's like that scene of her in the theater is some of the most heart in like cinema. Like it's just so cute. And all of this is showing you another side of Hollywood, right? It's showing you the successful side. It's showing you the well established side of Hollywood, to show you that other snapshot of it. It's showing you an innocent woman caught in this. and it's not related to the main story, but it's all there to build that tension for an event that never happens in this film. And that's kind of brilliant. Like,
Yeah.
It's
very
it's very what?
Glorious Bastards.
Yeah, it is. But like he did something special with this one as opposed to Inglorious, where like I don't know, you're trying to save someone, and just the innocence of her and the tension build up to her inevitable death. Because there's another thing that people dislike about this movie that was super intentional, I think, and that was the narration that kicks in late into the movie. And I think I've talked to you a little bit about this, where that narration, it was there in the beginning a little bit, and it shows that there's a big jump and it shows up again, and people are like, oh man, that's lazy. First of all, if we didn't have time to see all of their Italian venture, I think the end goal of it was what Quentin was really trying to get at. But the most important part of it is that the narration starts getting real factual, and it starts getting real matter of fact. Yeah. And it starts priming you to get ready for what you've been waiting the whole movie for. And it's like, oh, wait, we're getting back to reality. And it made me even forget that Quentin Tarantino ever did Inglourious at that moment, because I was like, oh, they're going to either do a thing where the hippies kill Rick and then Tate's family. They're going to do a thing where they kill Rick brutally and then that spares Tate. So you're setting up for like, oh, man, how is it going to involve this inevitable fate of some family dying horribly? How is it going to involve these made-up characters? And that is used for the biggest subversion of the movie.
Yeah, because I remember you told me to look him up, and I read everything that happened to Sharon Tate. I was like, because I know Quentin Tarantino, and he has extremely violent movies, and I was just like, I really, really don't want to see this, because like looking at it, it's just horrific.
It is some of the most fucked up stuff.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to tell you, I could tell like immediately that was you and Bradley's fear, but I also didn't want to go to, you can't tell someone it's like, but it doesn't happen, because the anticipation building to it is so important for that first viewing.
And even if you, it's and like what's great about this ending too is that even if you don't know about the Sharon Tate murders, you still kind of like, it still leads to a very satisfying conclusion for the story that's being told. It's just the Sharon Tate part of it adds this kind of fantasy element to the story being told.
Yeah, it's like if you don't know about Sharon Tate, then you're gonna miss that third of the theme of the ending, but you're still gonna get this fun ending for Rick and Cliff, where Cliff gets to show how badass he is, and Rick gets to be a true cowboy and do something heroic in his real life as opposed to on the screen.
And like the ending bit where like, so there are a few other scenes I want to talk about before we talk about the ending.
Okay, you want to back it up, because I want to talk about the ending. Let's back it up then.
I want to talk about the portion where, well, I guess there's really kind of three scenes. There's a Bruce Lee scene. There's shooting the cowboy movie, and like the scenes that all those are together. And then there's the Western scene, like the actual Western scene.
Right. Oh man, let's do it. Let's go in that order then. I think it goes in that order, because we talked about Leo talking with the director guy.
Yeah. So
we can jump into
Bruce Lee.
Bruce Lee. Yes. Lead us.
Yeah. So I guess like a quarter through the movie, Rick goes off and is doing and is going to go do his movie shoot or TV shoot, and basically tells Cliff like, hey, I don't think you're going to be able to work on this shoot because this guy that you know is working on it, and y'all don't have a good relationship, so you might as well not try, and let's not worry about it. Cliff's like, yeah, okay, and he goes back to Rick's place to fix his antenna. And by the way,
the flamethrower is in the shed, which I didn't realize.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yes, very good.
that is good, really good. But he goes back, and then he's fixing the antenna, and he thinks back to the time that he pissed off this dude that he can't work with anymore. And you're kind of like taken aback because you think he's like back at the movie shoot or something.
Right. It happens so suddenly that you think he drove back up there and forced himself to be in.
Yeah.
And something's not setting right, because you just heard about what Leo was going to be wearing and how it was going to emasculate his look. But
Yeah,
then you get back and he's just in a tuxedo, and you're like, wait, what?
yeah, you're very confused, and I think that's part of the point.
Yes.
But anyways, so eventually, like you kind of find out that Cliff is accused of killing his wife and got away with it.
Which is
And,
very ambiguous, which is cool.
yeah, and then finally after some disagreements, it's the gaffer I think that he's talking to.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Kurt Russell.
yeah, Kurt Russell. Kurt Russell's like, fine, we'll take him. He'll be on here, but you can't cause any shit. And Leo's like, yes.
And don't get near my wife. She really doesn't like you, man.
Yeah, and so they go off, and Cliff is hanging out with all the other stuntmen there and stunt coordinators, and one of them is I forget what the actor's name is, something Cho.
But it's Bruce fucking Lee.
Yeah, it's supposed to be Bruce Lee, and Bruce Lee's telling the story about how he could like beat up Cassius Clay and everything, and Cliff's not having any of it, and so they challenge each other to like a friendly duel basically. And the way this is shot is so fucking great.
It's all one shot. It's really cool.
Yeah, and it feels like a fighting game that you're watching almost.
Oh yeah,
it's shot and it's framed and it feels like it's so well choreographed. But it's a great way to show that Cliff is actually a fucking badass, and he's such a badass he almost beat Bruce Lee.
It was a really important scene actually. That was another. This movie has so many Chekhov's guns, where one of them is Chekhov's kung fu training. That we see in this scene. How did you feel about Bruce Lee's portrayal? Because some people are mad at it.
Yeah, I don't know a lot about Bruce Lee, so it's kind of like all I know personally about Bruce Lee is that he was in a lot of movies. He did a lot of kung fu stuff, and he died at a relatively young age.
Yeah.
But,
what I have heard is that like Bruce Lee was a humble guy, but I have heard, I think I read somewhere that, and people please correct me if I'm wrong, I'm interested in this topic, that Bruce Lee was one to like kind of get in fun spars with the people he was working with. And like you gotta also understand that I feel like this scene is like deliberately being mistold. It is a flashback that is embezzled by the person looking back on it.
Yeah.
Where when he chucks Bruce Lee, he fucking shatters that car.
Yeah.
And it's like I feel like that's one of the things.
Yeah. Like it looks like he got punched by an anime character when he gets thrown into that car.
It was big anime. It was like we were watching Kill Bill for a second.
Yeah.
The most anime. And
like the car breaks and it sounds cartoony too. Like it's
and he's doing like jumping flying kicks and shit. So it's like pretty intense, right? So there's some fiction and there's some truth there. But there's also this element of Bruce Lee has like some really small cameos later on where he's training with the Polanskis. He's training with
Sharon Tate.
He's training with Sharon Tate and Polanski. What's Polanski's first name? Roman Polanski. And he just seems like a supporting teacher, like a really good kung fu instructor. So it's like, you know what, like they made a portrayal of Bruce Lee, and overall it wasn't like super, like it wasn't exclusively negative. They showed some like brief moments of him just being a cool dude, so it was fine with me. Anyways, that scene's hilarious.
Yeah. I like the way that he's talking in the cadence, and there's the shot of the best joke in there is like, if I killed you with my hands because they're lethal weapons, be considered murder. And it goes back to Cliff, and he's like, killing anybody is considered murder.
Killing anybody's manslaughter, and I mean, he's familiar potentially.
Yeah.
And I like when like Bruce Lee's like hiya, and he's like hiya, he's like mocking him,
and like Cliff is just like gay.
Very fun. And then all of that is just building for like a 2-line punchline where it flashes back to Cliff, and you realize you were in a flashback. He's like, well, you know what, fair enough. Oh man, just the boldness to have a 5-minute joke build up.
Yeah,
really good, man.
But like it's crucial to establish like who Cliff is. Yeah. Like Cliff doesn't want to take shit from anybody, but he doesn't want to really start shit either.
But like, if you start shit, he can finish it.
Yeah, that's the whole point. Is that he's a layback dude and he just wants to mind his own business. But as soon as you get into his business, he gets pissed off.
Let's skip a scene here and talk about Cliff's other big scene on that train, because I feel like that directly feeds into his story with the ranch, which actually starts on the streets where he's seeing Margaret Qualley, Pussycat or whatever on the streets. By the way, very seductive young lady. She's 22, so that's okay to say.
Yeah. Thank
Um,
God.
the hippie armpits weren't even like a super deal breaker. That's how cute she was.
Oh man, that deal broke me. I was like, nope, I'm done.
Yeah, no, it was hard. I was like, oh man,
I mean,
why'd she gotta be a hippie though?
that's like a full fur patch.
Oh,
Like,
it
it
was,
was like,
I mean, there goes the hippie demographic of this podcast. But
yeah.
more respect to her. She's super playful. She's super seductive, and I feel like that's part of like trying to get people to the ranch to see how many people she can convert.
Incredibly forward too.
Yeah,
Well,
just trying to suck cocks,
yeah.
dick sucking girlfriend, as Joe says.
Yeah, and then,
Yep.
yeah, it's a hard situation to be in. No pun intended.
Cliff was a very powerful man, being able to say no.
Yeah, and you get this idea. It's like, yeah, he wants it, but as soon as he's like, I can't trust this person. Like that's a huge deal.
Yeah.
Like she's like, okay, you're not willing to tell me your name. I can't really trust you. Or like, not your name.
I've avoided jail so far, and you're not going to be the one who gets me in there.
Yeah, and you're like, okay, you're someone that I should be cautious of. And he gets to the ranch, and he's just like,
that ranch scene builds up so nicely.
And
he steps out. So, like Joe said, this scene's a western.
Yeah.
He steps out of the car. You're already getting these wide shots of him looking out to where he used to work, and you can already get this sense of like nostalgia.
It also starts off like a very western shot.
Yeah.
Because whenever like the gunslinger or whoever comes to town, it usually starts low underneath the horse, and you see them come out and like jump off their horse, and you just see their boots as they walk up to the town. That's like the stereotypical cowboy shot.
And as you're walking out, the locals are popping out and they're glaring at you. And so he introduces. They all group up around him. They're trying to see what he's all about. Tex is introduced. So Tex is like a actual like human being who is a big part of the Tate murders.
Yeah.
I mean, he even shows up later in the movie, and so that's supposed to be a big deal, like a big deal if you know. Also, the more you know about the story, the more tense the scene is. I didn't know about this at the time, but one of the first murders in this whole big string of murders was a stuntman at the ranch. So
I didn't know that.
People watching the movie would have had a heightened sense of tension because, like, oh, they're replacing that story with Cliff. I thought Cliff was gonna die. Tarantino is no stranger to killing main characters.
Yeah.
He killed John Travolta midway through that movie. Like he kills
like half the bastards class before even half the movie was done.
Joe, have you seen Django?
I haven't.
Oh man, we gotta watch Django. That's my favorite. Spoiler alert, that's my favorite movie, actually. Period.
After seeing Leo do his whole cowboy thing, I was like, man, I gotta really watch Django.
Oh, Django used to be my favorite role from him, and now it's like tied. That's how good he was in that as well. So Cliff is there. He goes to confront Squeaky, who's also another real person. This scene is fucking what a villain! What a villain for a western to have this unbending hippie chick just be like this horrifying tension building villain. It really goes to show I don't know, just the kind of inversion of the West that this movie is thematically trying to tell. There's a lot of layers to look at this movie from, and I feel like that there's definitely some of that going on.
Yeah. Telling you, man, redhead's no good.
I don't know about that, man. Kim Possible.
That's one exception. But like it does a great job in like this build up, and like you said, there's a lot of tropes that are being played here, like
the Dutch angles, the close-ups.
The Dutch angles one was really kind of there. It really like it's like, wow, someone actually used a Dutch angle, like very good this time,
tastefully.
Like, yeah, tastefully done, and you get this sense of unnerve, and like it builds up because you get to the colony and everyone's like, yeah, whatever, they're talking to him, they're having a good time, but like you get that first shot of the inside of the house, and like it's moving, and like you just hear like a voice from somewhere in there.
Right. And so the diegetic audio, like the audio coming from the world, was really well used in this scene because as he's like in the house and he's moving through, just the TV shows in the back, and it's just adding the sense of spookiness.
Yeah, but like, but then like what I was getting at was, so they keep cutting back to this house, like where Squeaky and like all the other hippies are like just chilling out watching TV.
Yeah.
Every time they cut back, they have not moved at all. It's nerve wracking because
And Squeaky's just like, as soon as he starts coming over, you got to tell me.
yeah,
It's like, oh, what is this girl gonna do?
and you know immediately like they've done this before. They know what it's like.
Yep.
That's like why they're so calm and not nervous or anything. But you still feel this tension, this edge.
That's a good point. Like their calmness too,
Mm-hmm.
and then the calmness of her letting go see
George
George Spawn or something.
Yeah. And like there's another part during this too that's really cool that really emphasizes the cowboy walking into the abandoned town where like he's up on the porch and you can see like the rest of the street down and everyone's like lined up like blocking his path to get away.
Yeah, really really cool. So he sees George. It's a complete deflation of the tension where he's like, "Oh, she's fucking me and taking care of me. She's okay." True story, by the way. That's how they stayed at the ranch, apparently.
Yeah.
So
get the fuck out of here! I don't even know who you are.
Tarantino loves to undercut climaxes, and that was definitely one of those.
Mm-hmm.
And the one thing I would remove from this movie, the one scene is when he's back at the car. He beats up that guy for a while, and then he has him fix his car. I wouldn't have had them call Tex because it didn't really lead to anything. Like he's out of there before Tex can get there.
No, I think that's important. I think it does because then it kind of builds on like when Tex breaks into the house and he realizes who Cliff is because he's like the guy that got away kind of deal, that he wasn't that spat on his family kind of deal.
Cliff recognized Tex more than the opposite though. So I don't know.
But I feel like I still like that scene though because you get that shot of the girl getting on the horse and it's a great juxtaposition too because so when they get to the ranch they have this side job where they take tourists out on like the horse trails and they go right around the horses.
Mm-hmm.
You're like, okay, whatever. And backing up from that, Pussycat's talking about, you know, how actors in Hollywood are fake and they're not real people and they put on a show.
Ooh, right.
And so then when they're like, go get Tex, and the girl gets on the horse and she rides off, she goes and gets Tex, and she's like, Tex, you gotta go back, blah, blah, blah. It's like, and Tex rides off, and she immediately flips and like
into the role. Yeah, because she's like, and Tex is like, God damn it, and she just immediately flips into like this. Oh, here we go. I'm gonna lead y'all now.
Yeah, and it's just horrifying because they're manipulating people and they're lying to themselves and to everyone around them, and it really emphasizes like how it's just a small little thing that helps build that. Like,
I guess the part I would actually remove is how long he's punching that guy. He like punches him 4 times in slow mo. I was like, oh, that's a bit much.
Yeah, but still, it's a Tarantino movie.
Yeah,
and
I mean, like, there's some Tarantino-isms where you could cut back on. I feel like everything else added to something, but the 4 punches were like, maybe it adds to Cliff's brutality, but like I feel like the brutality wasn't Cliff's, it was Tarantino's near the end there. You know what? You know what? That's what it is. He beat that guy up 4 times because that is Tarantino's rage.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I'm turned around.
Yeah. And I like how like Brad Pitt's just like fix it. It's not a. It's just such a matter of the fact and like the great way to if you're a big weeb is say like Cliff in this movie is basically just stuntman Jotaro in the way he acts.
Yeah.
He's just like, I'm gonna kick your fucking ass.
That's he's part 6 Jotaro. That's who he is.
He is. And like I just like I'm tired and it really emphasizes it goes back to that whole part where like, you know, if this was Cliff's car, Cliff probably would have just gotten in the car and driven.
But he's like, this is my boss's car.
Yeah. And it's like, I can't have this happening, so I need you to fix it.
One last thing of this scene I want to mention. When Cliff steps out of the house, the shot that we see is probably what fully sold me that this Cliff being a cowboy angle is super intentional. Yeah. And it's that, and so is this hippies versus Hollywood versus the West kind of thing, where it's Pussycat standing in the location where an antagonist of a Western would be. And the camera pans up from her feet to her legs to her hips, where her hand is next to her hip, where she has like a hippie pouch, which is what they're called, I guess. And it's just there, like she's reaching for a pistol.
Yeah.
And it makes it so abundantly clear, looking back on it, that this is the plight of the cowboy versus the new antagonist of the West. And it's completely shot like a Western.
Yeah. It's so good.
Layers, man. There's so many lenses to look at this movie from, which is why I definitely want to watch it again.
Yeah. And then
Okay.
you get the scene of him walking away and like everyone like yelling at the town, like trying to run him out of town and everything.
Mm-hmm. Classic
Uh,
stuff.
yeah, it's that scene is like top tier, top five scenes probably from me. Like just in the way it's shot and it's tense and it's so good. Uh,
Let's talk. So we're gonna talk about probably my favorite scenes of the movie, aside from the ending. Leo stuff at the movie.
yeah.
There's a lot going on here. Right off the bat, he meets this young, up and coming
Well,
actor.
also he's filming a TV show, not a movie.
Right, it's a
He's
pilot for a TV show.
yeah.
And so one interesting thing when he's talking to his co-star's life is going great. He is who Leo used to be. That's him.
Hmm.
And you can tell he starts it off by looking up to Leo. And he's talking to him, and he's droning on, and there's these very intentional cuts to show us that the conversation's going, and it's getting to Leo. Another interesting interaction between them is when they're talking about getting the lead role to The Great Escape.
Oh yeah.
I love that scene because as soon as he mentions it, a music cue kicks in and Leo's face drops.
Hmm.
And as the conversation is going, Leo's like, "Man, I never had a chance. It was no big deal. Four other people were ahead of me." But as the conversation is going, it keeps showing Leo in that role.
Hmm.
I think to show that like he can so well visualize himself in that role, but possibly that he also rehearsed so much for that role that he can
Yeah.
perfectly see himself in it. And
Hmm.
it's like, oh man, this is what could have been. And every second I talk to this guy is like another dagger in my stomach as I realize I wasn't in this role.
To him, it's this big missed window of opportunity. Like to him, he was robbed of a great role.
And that is such a fun way to show that, where it just keeps cutting back to it, and he's just doing the role perfectly. I just a lot of clever ways to show people your mindset. A good thing about Rick is how honest he is. Like right off the bat, like he's honest with his feelings as soon as he's done meeting with the Italian director. Like he's very aware of where he is in life, and he's aware of his issues too. He just doesn't know how to conquer them.
Yeah, and I think backing up, I think before that happens, he gets on set and he's like waiting for like his mustache to dry or whatever. And he runs into the little girl,
Right. This
who's
scene
an actor or whatever.
This scene made me cry almost.
Yeah,
And there's a specific reason why. But in this scene, he meets the little girl. She is just this huge method actor. Where even Leo's like, "How old are you?" She's like
yeah.
8. It's like, what is wrong? You're so dedicated. And
Hmm.
they're just chilling, reading books. And at first, she doesn't like Leo's company or Cliff's or Rick's company, but like she warms up to it. And
Yeah,
they start talking about this book that Rick is reading, and it's such a thesis statement for this movie. Um, he's talking about this book with a cowboy called Easy Breezy, and Easy Breezy used to be the best cowboy in the land, but he took an arrow to the knee, rather to the hip,
yeah,
and he just don't work so good anymore. Like his words exactly, and he's just fallen off, and he's just plummeting in relevance as a cowboy. And as Leo's reading this, the little girl's already getting sad, and Leo starts to come terms with like his true emotions because he's introspective like that throughout the movie, but like it's really hitting him how much he's relating to Easy Breezy, and like he's just crying, and I'm in the theater like feeling really bad because if there's two fears that are like comprised of my soul, I have two fears, and they're both internalized by Quentin Tarantino characters. One of
yeah,
them is Jackie Brown, which I think I talked about last podcast, and her fear of running out of time. You can only restart so many times before you've run out of time and chances to restart
yeah,
and not getting anywhere in life. That's one of them. Um, and this one is just been also relevant these days where, okay, you've worked hard in your life and you achieved something, but what if you're not good enough to keep it? And like
yeah,
how crushing that is. And watching Leo go through that, like I'm not even in my late 20s and that was already like a midlife crisis moment. I was like, oh man, that this moment, I really needed to see this right now.
yeah.
So good.
Uh, and then it's great because it talks about like it delves into that existential career kind of thing that everyone I think goes through everyone like in their life. Like, what am I doing? Where's my career going? Like, what does it mean to me? And like, where can I excel in my career? And like, that's the first half of this whole like segment for him. And then you have this intermission of him. And then we have the scene a little bit later. I can't remember the exact like pacing of everything. I think it's after the conversation with the new lead, where it's the first scene of the bar, and like it's a one shot take, and they're going through everything, and like Leo is doing really good. He's killing it, and then like halfway through he starts stumbling, and he like keeps on stumbling and stumbling and stumbling the
The way
entire
that
time.
scene is shot is so cool too. It's like pseudo fourth wall breaking, where you're in the camera's view, and then when he messes up, the camera reverses to where it's supposed to be. That scene is so cool. It's one of my favorites in the movie.
Well, like and like you hear all this like dialogue from like the script taker and director, and like it's off screen, so you
Yeah,
kind of like you're
you're
still
still immersed in the movie, but it's breaking that movie's fourth wall.
yeah, and like it's great. I love in this movie that Tarantino is okay with just people talking off screen and like letting us just figure out who it is and understand what they're trying to do, and not cutting back to them back and forth.
He
And,
does a lot of that in this movie with the FBI scene too.
yeah,
Um,
and it's really important because it kind of shows you that like Leo is like how focused everyone is in the moment while they're filming this. Like
yeah,
they are in this town.
they are fucking professionals, man.
Yeah, they are doing this job. And the fact that Leo is shouting to someone off screen and not in frame is so jarring. That's how it feels for everyone else in that situation right now.
And his co-lead, whose name I'll never remember, just looks so awkward throughout it all. I was like, dude, you're supposed to be a professional. Get it together. And
Yeah.
a little character quirk we haven't mentioned about Leo that's been there the whole movie is when he's kind of nervous, when he's just talking normally, he has a bit of a stutter. But when he has confidence in his acting, the stutter's completely gone.
Yeah.
And they never point it out. It's just something that comes out, and it starts coming out in that scene as he's messing up.
Yeah, and it happens. He passes out like 2 3 times I think during the scene. And you kind of like, and then they're kind of like, okay, that was good job, that was what we needed, great. And then he goes back to his trailer and he has this fucking fit.
That fit is so hilarious and dark and just
Yeah.
perfect. That was improvised, by the way. Just
Oh, was
completely.
it?
Yeah.
Nice. And then,
Tarantino liked it so much he kept it.
yeah, he just keeps on throwing shit. And at one point, you're an alcoholic, you're never gonna drink again. He grabs the flask, take a drink. He's like, motherfucker.
He tosses it out. I'm gonna blow your brains out tonight if you don't do this.
Yeah.
It's like, Jesus, why am I laughing? It was
The best shot during that, you say it's improv, but I think it's hard to do that. But he's talking to a mirror, but the mirror is directly positioned to where when he's talking to it, the reflection is directly.
Man, I think that is just a work of God right there. Like it's I think it's all improv. That's what they said.
And so he's just like directly like referring like almost a motivational speech to you
Yeah.
to get your shit together.
I mean, we've all been there where we're like, man, what the fuck did I do last night? Why am I so dumb?
like why did I do that? Why did
Yeah.
I have eight?
Why did I have eight whiskey sours? You couldn't stop at 3. You had to have 8.
Yeah.
Oh
but then,
man.
I think then at that point it cuts away to the Cliff Cowboy scene.
Right. And
And
then we finally come back to the Leo final scene in this section.
he's getting up from his trailer. He's like going through his lines one more time, and like you go through this entire shot of like this big villainous moment, I guess, of the pilot or something, and he like kills it.
That's like Oscar worthy performance. I know it's cliche to say, but oh my god.
Yeah, and like
That's the kind of shit you see in Django, by the way. Like that's why we gotta watch Django next after Kill Bill 2.
yeah, and he just kills it. And like the big thing about this is like the it cuts and it pans away and you see all the crew there and they're looking at them. They're like, oh, and the director comes over and says, oh man, great job, that was wonderfully improvised, that was amazing, oh, you were so good. And like even the girl's just like, hey,
That was the
like,
best acting I've ever seen.
yeah. And and like it kind of shows to him, he realizes like he can like be great again.
That was such an uplifting scene, and like, God, he was incredible in it. He starts immediately getting teary eyes as soon as cut is called. Like he was putting his all into it.
Yeah, and he realizes like, to him, like being an actor is just being a good actor, and like he's gonna prove to everyone that he can be a great actor that way.
Which transitions us directly into the last act, which starts with the Italian trip. When they get back, he's got a hot new wife. She's very fun. And let's wrap this up by talking about the finale, the last 20 minutes of this movie.
I think we start out because like we talked about this before. It starts going through this narration.
Yeah.
and so and it's really kind of just basic. Like, here's what Sharon Tate and her friends were doing up until this night.
Every
Sharon,
with timestamps to really set it in stone.
yeah, and then like you kind of figure out, and then like, oh, also before this whole thing happens, Cliff and Rick have a conversation where Rick is like, "Hey man, where things are changing. I have a wife now. We're gonna move. We're gonna sell the house, but I think I can't. I'm not gonna hire you as a service anymore just because of the way that things are shifting." Basically.
And I mean, Cliff's sad, but he takes it well. He just sips his drink, and they're like, "You know what, bud? Let's have one last big drink off before we get into this new stage of our life."
Yeah, like it's a big transitional moment where like Rick is just like, we're coming to a point now where we just have to split ways and we have to move on and like grow in our own direction, which is also really kind of empathetic because everyone's goes through that, especially after college and like
Yeah.
and everything. Like you just have to part ways with the people that are close to you, and it sucks. But it kind of like goes, and they go out and have this big night. They get shit faced at them at the Mexican place.
Very fun. Take a cab home.
And they get there, and Brad Pitt goes to walk his dog Brandy and smokes an acid-laced cigarette.
The Chekhov cigarette.
Yeah, which was set up in the FBI section, like
a while ago.
Yeah.
But
so what, to me, like you say, like, and so you get this tension at the start when they start doing this timestamp thing. But for me, the part where it gets really tense, like the tension really ramps up, is when you see the shitty car come up with the hippies.
Yep. And 4 of them are in there. One of them is Tex. Some of the others were in the ranch. And Uma Thurman's daughter's in there. She's also in Stranger Things season 3. She is fantastic. And she ditches them as they're like... So they pull up, first of all, and hilariously, an angry, drunk, narcissistic Rick comes out and is like, "Get these fucking hippies out of my lawn!" He's chugging a whole pitcher of margarita. What a fucking icon.
Obviously, I went to see this with my parents. My mother was sitting next to me, and when she realized who these were, she's like, "Oh no, oh no, oh no!" And she's like holding on tight, cause like it's such hilarious tension.
Yes.
Where you're just like, "Oh my god, this is hilarious," because Rick doesn't realize these people have come to murder
his neighbors.
Yeah, his neighbors. And they could easily murder him, but he's just pissing and yelling at them the entire time.
And they pull out a gun. I'm like, oh, is this like so much could go wrong? There's so much tension building, and it's just also hilarious at the same time.
And he's like, we just gotta turn around. I was like, back the fuck up.
Oh man, so they back up, and for a second there, you think everything's okay. But the crazy one is like, these fucking actors, they grew us up, they taught us how to kill, so let's fucking kill them.
There's a really important thing I think that has to happen right before this. So there have been hints and notes of this throughout the entirety of the movie about Rick, and that people grew up watching his show. Like, people know who he is. Like, they know what bounty law is, and like what they know, like
the hippies knew who he was.
Yeah, and that's like a huge moment. Like, and they kind of get a starstruck moment, like, oh my god, John K. Reilly just yelled at us.
Yeah,
that's pretty awesome, man.
Yeah.
And like they're starstruck, and then like and play. It's important at the very end of this movie, I feel. But yeah, then the crazy Asian girl, it's like, they taught us to murder. Let's go kill them all, as like a sign of rebellion or some crazy high hippie shit.
Yeah.
And then Uma Thurman's daughter runs away.
Yep. Good for her. I wouldn't like to see her die.
Yes. Because she realized, like, these people are crazy.
Yeah. She's like, I left my knife in the car. She fucking bails. In real life, she just waited at the car.
Yeah,
that person.
And then going back to the cowboy motif, they come walking up like a bunch of bandits.
Yeah, that is that shot. So like the tension goes down, and then that shot happens, and it starts shooting back up.
Yeah, and by this time, Cliff has like just about made it home.
And he's tripping balls.
Yeah, and what I love about this movie that Quentin Tarantino does, and this is also to like Brad Pitt's like acting effort, is you don't see anything Brad Pitt's seeing.
Yeah, it's so easy to go that route, but it's also so easy to like not do it well, I guess, where it just looks cheesy and weird.
Yeah. So but like Brad Pitt really killed it. It really sold the whole high thing, and kind of like it wasn't overly campy, and it was just believable enough. Like, okay, yeah, he's he's pretty fucking out of it, man.
It's already Cliff's personality, but now like in his weird state of mind. It was still very much on character.
Yeah. And you get to the point where you're and so like Cliff is there, he's trying to feed Brandy and whatnot, and they bust him down the door. I think it's Squeaky, the redheaded girl, comes. No, she comes.
No,
to the
Squeaky's
front door.
not there.
No, yes, she is. She's the redhead.
Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah.
They bust through the door, and the girl, comes around through the side, comes through the side door, and
So
Cliff is tripping out.
what's extra scary about that scene is that I think it's a recreation of what happened at the actual murders, even so far to sending someone to go get a wife out of a bedroom.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, oh no, they're gonna be the replacement deaths, or they're going to be an additional casualty.
Yeah.
That is until Cliff motherfucking I forget Cliff's last name, but that motherfucker, man.
He uses his stand, Brandy, you a fine girl, and and sends him the after text and gets the gun out of his hand.
You just get the most awkward, hilarious, uncomfortable, brutal beatdown.
Yeah.
And it's magical. It is like Quentin Tarantino has always had a saying about like violence in movies is not the same as violence in real life. Violence in movies is fun and cathartic and weird and uncomfortable. And it's like I don't think he's ever shown this as well as he did this film.
And especially like because it's really to emphasize the point of like it releases that tension for the audience. Like we're killing the bad guys and they're getting their just rewards.
Not only are we killing them, we're killing them super hard, but also these people were terrible. This is Quentin's revenge years after. This is the only way he can express his rage.
Basically.
Yeah. Which is why I feel like Hollywood being like a setting and like a character in this movie, like it's this crazy, insane story that can only happen in a once upon a time story in Hollywood.
Yeah, like it's a fairy tale about. But yeah, you have this crazy beatdown, like where Cliff is like ramming this girl's head into the side of the fireplace,
like 5 times more rams than he needed. Like it was just gloriously horrible.
The guy gets his balls ripped off by Brandy. The fucking wife even participates and like punches the redhead.
She got off easy.
Yeah, and then she ran away to her room.
And the Asian girl, who's apparently like extra bad in real life, she gets it super bad.
Yeah,
where she gets her face smashed in by a can, and then oh my god, this last scene is so fucking funny.
It's hard to describe it and give it like exact like it's just rewards because it's so good and so well done.
A zombie pops out. Oh man, okay. So Rick is just chilling, listening to the radio in his pool, and a fucking undead zombie with a gun.
By the way, with his margarita.
Yeah, just having a good time. Just pops out through the window into his pool. He yells, "What the fuck?" And she's shooting into the air, and he's awkwardly swimming out of the pool, and she's just kind of flailing in there. Like the biggest flail. Like I'm talking, there's a scene in Kill Bill 2 that is very reminiscent of this. And Rick goes into the shed, and for a second you're like, what is he doing? He comes out with a fucking flamethrower, man.
At the very beginning of the movie.
And he torches her immediately, super casually.
Yeah.
Oh my god. Chekhov's flamethrower.
There's nothing really here in symbolism other than just revenge and pure kind of tension relief in this situation.
There's also like he gets to be the big badass hero in real life.
He gets to have his own like gunslinger story basically.
Yeah. And like we move on from all that. Cliff took a wound to the hip, also tying him into Easy Breezy.
It's a really minor stab wound.
Yeah.
But this brings to the conclusion of both of our stories that we've kind of been telling about the fading star and like the relationship between these two, where Cliff is like getting into like the hospital bed and putting him in the back of the ambulance and everything, and Rick is also being interrogated by the police. And there's a great scene with the Italian wife being interrogated, and she's so riled, she's just speaking off Italian the entire time.
And the guy's just taking it.
Yeah.
The whole interrogation scene, hilarious. But then Roman Polanski comes down.
No. It's not Roman Polanski, but I don't want to get that to there yet. There's a scene, they're carting off Cliff, and and Rick comes up to him and is like, man, let me come to the hospital with you. Let me, you saved my life. You saved my wife's life, whatever. And he's like, no, man, it's fine. It's good. I did what I needed to get done. You're like my best friend. Come see me tomorrow. Get naked with your wife and whatever. Just like,
my dog is there protecting y'all. Y'all be good.
Yeah. Take care of Brandy. She's probably a little riled. Make sure to feed her. And it really kind of solidifies that like they really do care for each other. They're not just business associates. And
I mean, their final line to each other, is you're a great friend.
Yeah, and like I'll see you tomorrow, man. It's like, yeah, man, I'll see you tomorrow too. And like they just know they're going to see each other again. Like,
even though their professional career might not be the same, their friendship is for real, for real.
Yeah. So like, and that like really solidifies like that whole story about them and like how their lives are changing around them. But then we get to the end of Rick's kind of like story and fantasy of ascension, essentially. So like after this point, everyone's pulled away, and Jay Serberg, who's like the hairdresser and
right,
ex-fiance, comes out and is like, "Hey man, what's
cool?
Yeah, like what's going on?" And like has such the best fucking joke in the movie.
Which one?
The like it's like, man, is everything all right? Like they're talking about it, and you're like, and Leonardo DiCaprio's like, yeah, a bunch of fucking hippies came in and broke into my house. I don't know if they were trying to rob me.
I torched one.
Yeah, I torched him. It's like, oh man, that's awful. Like, and explains like what happens and like how they got killed and everything. And he's like, man, is everyone all right? And he's just like, well, not the fucking hippies, but yeah.
Oh man, and like they're just having this nice talk, and he recognizes him, and he's like, hey, my, I guess, ex-wife, she's a huge fan of yours. And Rick is like, what the fuck? I've been looking up to these people like gods.
It's a huge kind of moment for Rick, because he realizes that like he kind of realizes he's had an impact on people that he now aspires or like it like looks up to.
Yeah,
and it's a huge cathartic moment for him, because he's like, because
I made a mark.
Yeah, like Jason's like, oh man, I know who you are. Like, I know like Sharon talks about you all the time. And then Sharon comes on the intercom or whatever and starts talking to him, and he kind of realizes that like he's been intimidated by him, but she's also just been intimidated by her to him.
And when Sharon comes back, she sounds so sweet and caring and thoughtful, and you're just like, oh, she got to live in this universe. Like, that's so sweet.
Yeah. And it's a moment where like, and there's a great shot, because it's literally like Rick lives next to them, but like he really just lives next to their driveway, and like there's a gate in front of it, and like it's literally the pearly great gates of heaven to him, like opening up, and like it's light at the top of the hill, and he walks up the hill to the light and everything, and like is able to like be among the gods as he sees of Hollywood at the time.
And in the early in the movie, another Chekhov's is he's like, man, if I could only get one pool party with Polanski, I'd be his next big star. And it's so far gone from the movie where it's like it seems like a far-fetched dream to everyone watching as well.
Yeah.
And he does it. Like the movie ends with them accepting him into their home, and his fading career is allegedly saved, and it's an unabashedly happy ending.
I think like the thing about Quentin Tarantino movies is that they're brutal and they're gory, but they're also like very happy movies. I feel like all the ones I've seen, more or less.
Yeah, you should watch a few more.
Yeah.
He has a good mix between like some kind of soul crushing endings as well.
Yeah, but like the point of this movie was not to be soul crushing. It's really kind of
quite the opposite. It's just a really good message. Once it didn't take until like the setting to like the title to kick in, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and I was like, for me to realize, for it to like really click that I just watched a really fascinating fairy tale that could only take place in Hollywood.
That can only take place with these events.
Yeah, and that really blew me away. It elevated the movie into 5 out of 5 status at that point. Just retrospectively, it just made everything fit so well.
Yeah.
Love this movie. We talked about it for like probably the most we've talked about anything ever.
I just feel like Quentin Tarantino, like, one, I was able to stay away from all this and like really pay attention. And two, there's always a lot to unpack, and it's just a new film to discuss, and things
It's
to explore.
it was very artistic, and
It
another
was
like
artistic, but it was also not artistic, like overly artistic, if artistic in terms
yeah,
of like trying to like really go over your head. So
it wasn't that obtuse to where you couldn't have fun.
yeah.
Um,
Hmm.
there's like some other neat stuff to talk about. Like after Rick nails that scene, the style of directing shifts to more Tarantino like, where it's a
Yeah.
lot more confident, it's a lot more flamboyant, it's a lot more violent, it's a lot more narrative.
Hmm.
Very interesting. Where like you could kind of see some of the movie being Tarantino unsure if he still has it in him, and
Hmm.
then when Rick sees that he still has it in him, the style of directing gets more confident too. So even structurally, there's that going on.
That was something I noticed at the very beginning, is that this doesn't feel very Tarantino from what I've seen.
This
Like
movie was Jackie Brown meets Inglorious Bastards.
mhm.
If you're looking at,
I was talking to my father about this, and where I felt like this seems like a an improved version of Jackie Brown.
yeah,
From like what you told me about, and what you've told me about it.
yeah, yeah. I really like Jackie Brown when I watched it earlier this year,
Yeah.
so I was super into it. Joe, I think we're good.
Cool.
We
Great.
we did this movie justice. I'd say I can be proud of that
Yay.
one.
Yeah.
All right, I gotta eat. I haven't had dinner. Bye, everyone.